Do you know someone who ruined their life in just a matter of minutes? If so, how did they do it? Excluding accidents and fights. Guy got intoxicated at corporate holiday party and made out at party, consensual, with work wife, who was a one-rank subordinate. HR unimpressed with violation of zero tolerance policy, fired for cause. Actual wife unimpressed with excuses, filed for divorce. Work wife, similarly unimpressed, filed for double divorce. She sold pills that she knew contained fentanyl to 2 people. The first one died. She found out, sold the same pills to another person. That person died. Boom. Life in prison. The texts between her dealer are what led to her arrest and exposed that she had full and complete knowledge that the pills would result in an overdose. Cousin dove into the shallow end of the pool while drinking. Paralyzed, and life was never the same. One of my high school teachers lost her son when he was drunk and dove into a pool from the 2nd floor. He didn't notice the pool was empty. An ex-girlfriend of mine, lovely person, was out at a restaurant bar with a friend one night. They had a meal and played pool. When they left, for some reason she drove his car. I don't know why, but I know that when she and I were together she asked to drive my car just for the experience of driving a different car. Maybe that was it. And I imagine, driving in someone else's car, you take a few extra seconds to adjust the seat and the mirrors and get your bearings. Unbeknownst to her, a teenager was driving a Mustang nearby. He was pissed because someone passed him a mile earlier, and his ego was hurt. He decided to catch up to the guy and floored the Mustang, getting up to speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. As my ex pulled out of the parking lot to cross the median, she had no way of seeing the Mustang barreling toward her over a hill. He crashed into her, killing her and her passenger. 2 seconds earlier or later, and they would not have made contact. I went to his trial. I remember her poor mother sitting there stone-faced while testimony was given. Several lives were ruined in that moment. My ex was only 26. She never got married, never had kids, never found her way in life. Any word on the killer? Did he get convicted? Yeah, he did. He was 17 years old at the time. He was tried as an adult, and for killing both people he still only got 4 years in prison. Damn, that's crazy. A drunk driver killed my dad, T-boned him 2 blocks from my house, and I wasn't in the car because I was exhausted after school. He got 4 years in prison, 10 years probation. I thought that was stupid short, and everyone was always like, but he didn't mean to kill him, that's an injustice. College frat party. Very chill vibe, not a rager. Mildly drunk kid mid-conversation decides to hop up and have a seat on the railing of a deck we were out on. He hopped up and did one of those panicked flails that you do when your chair is about to tip backwards on you, falls backwards off the deck, lands on his head. Medevac to the nearest trauma center. Did not make it through the night. I didn't know him, just seen him around campus. What was really sad to see was most people assumed he was being a drunk idiot at a raging frat party, and wound up doing some dumb stunt. He really just made a minor drunken miscalculation, and paid for it with his life. When I was a teenager, my dad and this dude had beef with each other. My dad was dating this guy's ex-wife, and he didn't like that. They bumped into each other at a bar, and exchanged some words. My dad left the bar, and the dude was waiting for him outside. A car rolled up, and somebody handed the dude a handgun. He pointed at his head from about 2 feet away and pulled the trigger. Luckily for my father, the gun jammed. My pops wasn't taking any chances, so he took off running. The dude cleared the gun and emptied the clip, missing all but one shot that hit my dad in the back. My dad was already downtown and the hospital was only a couple blocks away, or so he thought. Unluckily for my padre, the hospital was under renovation and preparing for relocation. When he saw that it was under construction, he slumped over and called 911 for an ambulance. The surgeons removed his kidney because it was too damaged to repair, and survived. The dude got an attempted murder charge and almost 15 years in prison. I had a friend who got into his car drunk with 5 other people, flipped the car and killed one of the passengers. He went from being this charming, good-looking, likable guy to a shut-in and was seen as a monster to a lot of people in the community. He was seriously broken about what had happened. The man that killed my grandfather had never so much as had a speeding ticket. He was married with kids and fell behind on rent. My grandfather, that was in his 80s, worked for the company that rented this guy his home for extra money. Grandpa couldn't reach him about his rent, so went and did a welfare check. The guy panicked and murdered my grandfather. Destroyed more than one life in a matter of 30 seconds. Pretty successful woman at a company I worked got drunk, took an Uber home from a party. Realized she left the keys to her apartment behind, so she decided to climb up to her second-story balcony to get her spare set. She slipped, paralyzed herself, couldn't work for a year, racked up ridiculous medical debt, and the pandemic left her position useless, so she was let go. Guy I went to high school with was kicked out of his college ROTC and moved back home. After some time of living at home, his dad walked into his bedroom and went off about him being a lazy ass and needing to do something with his life. He decided he was going to take his gun and rob a bank. Supposedly the gun wasn't loaded, but he did successfully rob the bank and get away. Some time went by. He moved out of his parents' house and started living it up. He eventually told someone he trusted. That person turned him in. He was arrested and charged. He got a count for every person who was in the bank because he had a gun. You can decide if he ruined his life when he decided to rob the bank or when he decided to tell someone that he did it. If you get away with a crime, you never speak of it. My father punched a window out of anger, severed the artery and ligament in his bicep, almost bled out. Effectively removed his ability to work with his hands, which was the one thing he had going for him. He then became a moody POS alcoholic. Actually, he always was one, but way worse after this. He then beat the neighbor across the road with a pipe after they got drunk and got into an argument. He was arrested and went to jail. My parents lost the family home. They ended up splitting. I went no contact with him. 2 years later, he died. My former roommate had a great job, made great money, had his own house in which I rented a room. The only problem was he was a serious alcoholic and a shitty person. He'd get up at 4:30 to go to work, get off at 2, and then hit the bar until 11. Every single night. Unless he had a girl coming over, then he'd come home at 10, do a quick cleanup of his filthy room and have obnoxious and very inconsiderate loud sex. He hit a guy who was riding his bike drunk driving his way home one night. Fled the scene, came home, and went to the neighbor's house and said he hit a pole. The neighbor called the police, and on the way to the house, they found the guy he hit with his front bumper next to the body. He went to jail for vehicular homicide. Did 6 months and got out. Now he lives with his parents and can't get a job because his story is a little infamous in our town. His sister took over his mortgage and lives in his house now. All he does all day is cry on Facebook about how life isn't fair and bad-mouths the guy he killed. 6 months for vehicular homicide while drunk plus leaving the scene. What a fact. His sentence was originally 10 years, 7 suspended. The entire punishment was a travesty of justice and a slap to the face of the man he killed and his family. A guy I went to high school with was playing bottle rocket tag with some friends and took one to the eye which blinded him. He was a senior ready to go to college on a baseball pitching scholarship. That Aussie kid who, on a dare, ate a slug that had a parasite, developed a gnarly brain infection, ended up in a coma for a year, woke up paralyzed, then passed away in 2018. He was only 19 when it happened. Security company. This happened before I worked there, but some co-workers told me the story. Guy was doing well at his job. Got lots of promotions, on his way to lieutenant, but was too into his job and got a police scanner that he would listen to. One day, just as he was getting off work, a high-speed chase went by. He hopped in his personal vehicle with his firearm, got to the front of the chase, blocked the suspect in, and pulled his gun. Suddenly the cops were much more interested in the crazy guy with a gun. Got hit with several felony charges. Some guy tried to come into my nightclub when he was clearly too drunk. I made the call to not let him in, so he starts shouting at me and tries to aggressively walk up to me. I put my hands up in defense, and he's pushing back against me. Then the dude lunged at my boss next to me, so my boss shoves him. The guy tumbles backwards and slams the back of his head on a curb. Paralyzed from the neck down forever. Tried to take my boss to court for $15 million, but the camera showed this guy instigating everything. How did your boss take it? I can't imagine it was easy for him. I think the whole legal process lasted like 8 months. Dude was shitting bricks constantly from stress. It actually made it harder for us to do our job as bouncers in a college town because my boss was so paranoid about something like this happening again. It's why as a bouncer I don't shove, I wrap people up or get a firm grip on the chest of their shirt. I've purposefully swept out people's legs, but I've been able to keep them from slamming full force into the ground. Kid in middle school was walking home with headphones in, stopped to wait for a train to pass but was unfortunately standing on another train's tracks as he waited. My friend who never in her life took drugs went with her boyfriend and a few of his friends, mix of girls and boys, on a trip to Blackpool, UK on a minibus. On the way they all took drugs and persuaded her to take some too. She took a bad reaction and collapsed at the back of the bus. Instead of helping her, they all left her and buggered off for their night out. The bus driver went to tidy up the bus, found her, and called the ambulance. She just survived, but she still has mobility issues and walks with a limp, and she has really bad mental health issues to this day. Her boyfriend got jailed not for long, but she is still kind of messed up. She has severe paranoia, especially when it comes to drinking. All drinks have to be covered or she won't drink them. Kind of makes me wonder, was she spiked? We will never know as she can't remember. Not her fault, but that ruined her life instantly. A guy I know robbed a bank with a note saying something along the lines of, "Put the money in the bag," was released on bond within a few weeks. Went back to the same bank, with another note, and robbed it again. I think he got 35 years. Multiple instances comprised of multiple minutes each, but yeah. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.